Alright, so in this second part, I'm gonna talk about the things I forgot to talk about in the first video. I'm gonna talk about, first of all, like how you get cold steel, because I've had some questions about what splitting steel does, etc. But like, you only socket it in your inventory, in your setup. Like, it doesn't need to be linked or anything, you just put it in there to have access to cold steel, and that's it. That's all it does. It doesn't have to be linked. The only thing it does is pop your impels, and the damage of your impels comes from your actual main link. So there is nothing, you need one socket for it, and that's it. And you just put it in there. It doesn't have to be level 1, 20, it doesn't matter. You can have splitting steel in there, shattering steel, lancing steel, anything works. So with that out of the way, I'm gonna also talk about why champ and why it's better. Because I've had people say like, hey, isn't master metal bad? But I think there's a huge misconception about how impels work. Like, you don't have impel stacks. Like, because you are champion doesn't mean you can stack up to 5 impels, 7 impels. It just means your impels last 7 more hits. So when you use cold steel, it's gonna consume the 5 impels that you applied with impaler with all their charges, all their uses. So instead of having like 5 impels that last 5 hits, you're gonna have 5 impels that last 7 hits. So you're basically getting 40% more damage out of your cold steel because of master metal, which is why champion is by far the best ascendancy for this. The most balanced too. Berserker, like I said, does similar damage. I think Berserker does a tiny bit more, maybe, like very marginally. And it's not worth it, obviously. You just get speed if you get Berserker. So it's really up to you what you want. But yeah, so I just want to clear that out. Master metal is like the thing that makes champion do this much damage with this build. Next thing is, since we're talking about the damage from cold steel, the way cold steel scales is only through your direct hit damage. So nothing in your tree is gonna impact like the damage that cold steel does directly. It's gonna impact the damage of your direct hit when you impel with the impaler, and this is what's gonna increase the damage of cold steel. The only other source of increasing cold steel damage comes from the threshold jewel here, that increases the reflected damage. Reflected damage is a damage source on its own, just like fire damage, lightning damage, physical damage, chaos damage, etc. There's reflected damage, and there is nothing, as far as I know, there's nothing on the tree, nothing anywhere that increases reflected damage besides this. And it's only obviously for cold steel. Curses, for example, I know I talked about it briefly in the first video. Curses don't work because they only increase the damage for some certain type of damage. For example, vulnerability is going to increase the physical damage received by the target, but the cold steel damage is not physical damage, it's reflected damage. It's going to help if you can curse before you hit, then it's going to increase the damage of cold steel indirectly by increasing the damage of your hit. But if you use something like curse on hit, it's not gonna work, because your first hit that actually impels is gonna apply the curse, and as far as I know, it's not gonna count. Basically, it's not gonna count the curse on the first hit. So you really don't need a curse. You can self-cast it if you want. I would not bother because obviously on bosses it doesn't do much. Like for map bosses, like whatever. For serious shaper, etc., the curse only gives you something like 7% more damage, probably, something like this. So I would not bother. I would just, use other things, like maybe phase run, for example, is a good thing to use if you just want to juice up your first hit. Although, yeah, you don't have to self-cast it. But that's one more button to press. I know a lot of people don't really like that. Next thing, I'll talk about how to craft and what weapon bases you want to use. So I'm using a cavalry chopper. This is the best base. That's what you want to use. You don't care about the attack speed. Like, attack speed does absolutely nothing in this build. It only helps for boss fights, which I'm gonna talk about and showcase a bit later. The only is for boss fights because, I'll explain later. But yeah, attack speed does nothing. You just want raw damage. That's the only thing that matters. You want one big hit that's gonna snapshot for your 5 impel stacks. And how to craft it? You honestly do not need, the most damage is going to be a two-handed weapon, obviously, cavalry chopper. If you want to use it to one-hander, I would recommend either royal axes or tiger hooks. Tiger Hooks is a sword, so it's gonna require some I think I have one somewhere. It's gonna require some decks. I probably have one somewhere because I'm planning on using one maybe. Okay, I lost it. I don't know where it is. Yeah, but you can use Tiger Hooks, Royal Axes. Royal Axes, I know I have one somewhere. This is the one-handed that has the highest base damage. Like I said, attack speed doesn't matter, so you don't use Siege Axes. Siege Axes the most DPS because of the attack speed. You don't care about attack speed, so use Royal Axes. Or Tiger Hooks. Tiger Hooks have spell dodge, no, spell dodge? Attack dodge. There's dodge implicit on it, which is nice for hardcore. It's always something to get. It's the same damage as Royal Axes. So the only downside is really you need decks. Yeah, so that's all you want. And if you want to craft it, you can actually just alteration craft a weapon like this very easily. All 3 go. You just alteration until you get on a weapon that's at least 77, so you can hit flaring. And I think you just hit flaring or you hit temper, then you can regal. Whatever you hit, you just exalt craft and you have a weapon that's more than enough for everything in the game besides maybe bossing, because for bossing you still want a good weapon. Since, which again I'm gonna go over a bit later. I think I have a weapon, type of weapon you could use. Yeah, see, something like this for example is very good. Like it is more than enough. You can clear everything, no problem. We'll probably still one-shot map bosses. If not, you can two-shot them. If there's one mob, one trash mob next to it, you one-shot it still. So this is enough for example. And this is something you can alteration craft if you're in SSF very easily. Other than that, I would use fossils. You use three fossils. You use, I don't have them I think. You use a jagged. Do you want to use jagged? You want to use prismatic? Wait, I don't have. No. You want to use prismatic, and you want to use corroded. Corroded I don't have any right now, but yeah, you want to use corroded because it removes the elemental mods, which is the biggest one. The most mods that are gonna cock you are elemental mods, so you really want to get rid of them. And you also want to get rid, I guess, of the physical element to remove a bunch of the trash mobs you don't really care about. You could also, if you're in trade, I think you could just do single jagged. It's probably cheaper. But if you're in SSF, like you really want to make every single jagged fossil count, so you really want to craft with corroded plus prismatic, or you could also do something like jagged with frigid and scorched. That way you eliminate fire mods and cold mods. You can do that with metallic though. Yeah. So one of these 2 combinations, jagged, corroded prismatic, number 1, number 2, jagged, scorched, frigid. And that's how I would craft the weapon if you want. Ideally, if you want a multi-mod weapon, obviously you want a multi-mod with a high hybrid like I have here. This is pretty much like the type of weapon you would get if you just get lucky and get an Emperor or even a tier 3 is fine, a hybrid. Then I would multi-mod this and you're gonna get something good. Regardless. So yeah, that's for the weapons and the crafts. About flasks. Flasks, personally this is what I use. Obviously you want Lion's Roar. You want a granite flask for your champion, you're using molten shell for your defense. Then it's really like, you can pretty much do anything. You can use I'm using quartz because quartz I think is really important though. Because phasing is actually invaluable when you play a slam build, a melee build like this. You want to be able to like run around, run through mobs, position yourself properly, especially with heist. That's something that's gonna be important. So I highly recommend quartz flasks every time you play melee really. Lion's Roar goes without saying, damage, Quicksilver, you could have adrenaline on it. I had adrenaline on it. If you don't have element immunity, I would probably have shock on it. So yeah, you really just need freeze and shock. You do not need the staunching, since your war cries remove the bleed anyway with Admonisher. Admonisher also removes shock and ignite. The only element that's gonna be a problem is freeze and chill. Freeze is really bad. Chill, freeze obviously also. So you make sure you have your freeze flask. I use also sulfur. The only reason I use sulfur is because it has 3 uses. So for your warding, that's what you want. Honestly, I think sulfur is like kind of underwhelming, but yeah, this is like this or Stibnite. But again, you could use a Stibnite also, yeah, instead of this, which is fine. Good is a Basalt, but I don't recommend it again because it's one. Unless you have a max roll additional charges, you will have only one use, so it's not gonna be reliable for your ailment immunity, until you get it on your gear, obviously. And speaking of ailment immunity, yeah, the way I would do it is with Shaper Boots. I think you need Shaper Boots to do this. Since I would recommend using Fortify on Focus for your defense if you're champion. If you're not champion, then I guess it's not a problem. You can get ailment craft on the chest, on the gloves, and on the helmets, and it's gonna cap you basically by anointing Crystal Skin. So I would highly recommend this just because freeze and chill are a huge problem for slams. Like anything that slows you as for any slam builds is gonna pretty much kill you, like put you at the really high risk of dying, and you don't want that, so obviously. So yeah, the anoints besides Crystal Skin, like obviously Tenacity is the number one you wanna use. As for budget ones, I would recommend Slaughter. Just to get Onslaught. Using an Onslaught Flask is really, I really hate personally Onslaught Flask. You could use an Onslaught Flask and anoint something else, but there's not much you can anoint besides Onslaught really. Graceful Assault is also really good. I really like to anoint this before I get the olds for Tenacity. Yeah, I think that's about it. There's not much you can anoint really with this build. If you just want damage, you can get damage here. In Ambidextry, this is actually the best damage node you can anoint on the tree. Oh, actually, you could anoint yeah, Harvester of Foe. Gives you impale effect, damage, some attack speed. Even though it's irrelevant, it gives you the impale effect. So Harvester of Foes is cheap and it's pretty good too. So it's like Ambidextry, Harvester of Foes. Anything gives you Onslaught, so Slaughter or Graceful Assault. And yeah, and once you get Tenacity, I guess you either use a Abyss Jewel somewhere with Life and Onslaught, otherwise just use an Onslaught Flask and ditch maybe the Quartz, I guess. And try to get one that has 2 use. It's really important to have to roll a Silver Flask that has enough charges to have 2 use. I'm not sure if I have one somewhere. Yeah, something like this, exactly. Something like this, but with a good suffix. That's what you would want. Or a reduced charge use. I don't know if I have one somewhere. Probably not. Yeah. So yeah, that's for the flasks and the anoints. To level, for leveling, I'm gonna pull up PoE to show you this probably better. Show how your tree is gonna look like as you level. There's like multiple ways to level this. You could level with Steel skills that are pretty good for leveling. You could level with just slams, which is also pretty good. It's no problem at all. You can level with slams from the start and just transition later. I would not go Call of Steel Impaler early on because you really want to do this with slams, and with slams you won't have enough impale chance. So you're basically just gonna start here normally. To the life for damage, whatever. Get this, you go through Destroyer. If you're going slams, then you get Measured Fury. Get the life here. And then I would recommend, if you're getting slams again, going for Admonisher. And from that point, this is where you can, you're probably gonna be close to getting your impale chance, your impale support. In that case, I would go for I would go straight to Impaler and Respect later, because you really need Impaler. If you really want to play with this early on, then you go straight to Impaler like this, or from here doesn't. And you get Impaler early, and then you can start playing with it. And then rest, like self-explanatory. You just go for your the rest of your tree, the rest of your life, like here. Grab more impales here too on the way, which is what I did at least when I leveled. I went here, grab this for the impale chance, then grab this, and you're good to go at that point. Once you get impale support, but before impale support, I would level with just slams or Steel skills. If you use Steel skills, obviously you don't need this. You might want this though. You don't really need this. You don't need this either. You're gonna get it later. So early leveling, that's how it's gonna be, and once you get the impale support, it just plays out normally from that point. And now about bossing. So the way you wanna handle bosses, it's like I said last time, it's not the best build for bossing. I feel like it's a little bit clunky and it's kind of hard to execute. Like I need more practice, for example, to execute it myself perfectly. The big problem is that for bosses that phases, it's a really good build because it gives you time to like set up before. The way you wanna fight bosses, whether map bosses or tankier bosses like Conquerors, Guardians, etc. You wanna stack, use all your exerts first, drop down to like 1 charge of Seismic Cry, maybe 2. You can do it also with 2 or 3. It depends how confident you are in either one-shotting, two-shotting the boss, etc. You have a war banner, right? You're gonna have charges because you mapped before. If it's a Conqueror, you're gonna have your war banner charges, adrenaline. So you just walk up to the boss, you just use Intimidating Cry, you drop your banner, and then you slam. And then you wanna call Stay immediately, refresh Seismic Cry, and then try to like, yeah, again, dodge stuff, whatever, get it down, but not hit the boss. So you have 4 seconds where you can actually hit the boss and it won't be a problem. But after that, like, you really don't wanna impale without all your juice, basically. And you just repeat, you just do that and repeat. Intimidating Cry for the Intimidate and the Overwhelm, Slam, and detonate instantly because you don't want to hit accidentally later and use the impales with your attacks, which does less damage than if you use Call of Steel. And you just repeat this. I'll showcase it so that you can see how it plays out a bit. Like I said, I'm not very like everyone. I'm kind of new to the build. Like it's kind of the rest is mapping is fine. Bossing against Guardian and shit and stuff like this is can be a problem. Not really a problem, it's just that it's a bit clunky. I think it's hard to get used to, but I think it's completely fine. It gives you a lot of time to like move around and dodge stuff. Like one thing you could do, for example, is just go down to like 3 seismic stacks, 3 seismic exerts, and then start like this. And then you have to do this, all you have to do is just wait 4 seconds, basically. And you can dodge stuff, enduring cry to not die, slam again, and you know, detonate it, etc, etc. You can just do this, and if it's not dead, then you go again. I'll show it on. What can we show this on? Let's do this on a camera or something. Like I said. Always camera. I'm gonna roll it. Fucking ground it anyway. I just wanna do it. Come on. Oh yeah, that damage doesn't matter, it's fine. Alright. And I'll see if I don't have also other guardians so I can show different bosses. For Legion 2, you have to be a little bit careful with this build though, because it feels like your impels kind of get. Oh, what is this Legion actually? Your impels work like once, like basically you impel them before you what is it called? Before they get freed. So then when they're free, you actually cannot impale them. So you have to be careful with this. Like basically when there's 4 seconds left, less than 4 seconds left, you kind of wanna stop. Freeing more monsters. Legion. I'll try to go fast to the boss so I can show it. Also, you can use a Vol Ground Slam. I would not use it though for bosses, for example. It's only for clear. But I think Vol Ground Slam can be really useful for opening boxes, for example, since you're only hitting like in an arc in front of you. It can be nice to use and it's more than enough. Like you actually don't need to exert your attacks for clear. Like you can clear maps, like I said, with just Sleep Slam that doesn't get exerted in my case, for example. With not clearing anything. Like I'm gonna try not to use War Cries. I'm just too used to doing it. I'm gonna try to clearing the map. Oh, fuck, nice. Yeah, I just use it. It's hard to do it. Yeah, now this is like without. I'm gonna do it without exerts now. Just to show that like for clear, this is like. There's like, oh, you need almost nothing. Like you don't even need. The War Cry part is only really for bosses. Like this is no exerts at all. No exerts, don't even need them. So here the boss, like what you do, you stack like I said 3 times. I don't have a opener. I'll show up here. Intimidating Cry, slam, and he's phased. You want to make sure, like, this is gonna be 3 cycles here. So for example here, when the boss phases like this, when I use that to your advantage and prep in advance. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna get it to, yeah, like this. Now I'm to 1, I'm ready to wait. And it should be phase here, for example. Yep. Right here, I'm gonna kill these 2, then prep the next. So you know, that's why you need to know the fights like in advance. You need to know the fight to actually know when to prep for your hit. I'm gonna prep, I'm ready. Ah, got me, dude. Again, like, I'm not very experienced with bossing with this yet, so I am fucking up. I think everyone's gonna fuck up a lot trying to boss with this, because again, this is not strength of the build, I feel like, but you can do bosses with this. Ah, yeah, too slow. So normally you do this, right? And then you will slam. Up. Yeah, so basically that's how it would work. I can show maybe another guardian. Oh no, do I have a... I mean, yeah, you get the idea anyway. Like, I have, if you want to see like other boss fights, there is in my VODs, for example, from yesterday, which is Thursday, October 1st. I did like a bunch of, I did a couple synthesis bosses. I did, yeah, I did a bunch of other bosses. So yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. So I think this is a good point to stop. Yeah, I think this build is completely fine to do serious 8 with. Again, because there's a lot of downtime, which is where this build is gonna have the better time. When you have downtime, you can run around, the boss is not fighting you. This one is the best. You can prep your next hit. I think this build excels in these boss fights. For the rest, like more traditional boss fights, Earthshadow is obviously better. Sustained DPS, there is no conditions. You know, you cannot fuck up. You just slam, cycle, walk, rise, and it's done. Here you need a lot of setup. You need to know the fight ahead of time. Although I could see this build being good to doing new boss fights where you just wanna observe what's happening and not, you know, be careful, observe what's happening and like find openings. I think it could be good too. So I don't know, I think it's an all-around pretty good build. Not the best bosser. I think Earthshadow is better, but you can do bosses, and I think there's some cases I would say this build is better than Earthshadow in some cases, like when bosses like less HP, for example. You can just blow them up before they do anything. But yeah, so that's it for the complimentary video, I guess, from yesterday. For the one I did yesterday. If there's any more questions, you can do it. Post them in the comments. Come in my stream. Ask me. I'll be playing this build for a while, I guess. Still, like, I think for the next 2 weeks at least, I'll be playing this build. Hopefully, if I don't die. But yeah, that's the plan at least. So yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoy the build. And again, if you have more questions,